It's Hellraiser 2022 time. Episode 371 of the BarkerCast. Jose and Ryan are joined by Nina and Ed of Coenobium, Catalina and Joe of Little Spark Films, and Ian Swanson, who recently put together a charity screening of the Hellraiser 1987 version, and Eric Gross, friend of the show and puzzlebox designer. Together we break down the new Hellraiser film. We start out spoiler-free and then switch gears and take a deep dive. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime friend of Clive and advocate of his art, but Don's unique and inspiring paintings are for sale, and up to 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. Click the side banner and follow the link to the Etsy shop to have a look and buy one of his books. Texas friends, take a look at Don's art in the Pearland Arts Festival in the Pearland Town Center this weekend. All right, well, welcome. This is episode 371 of the Clive Barker podcast. This is a big episode in a bunch of ways. We are going to be doing our Hellraiser 2022. I think that's kind of what everybody's going to be calling it now, Hellraiser 2022.
I'm calling it Hellraiser 11.
Well, yeah, it's kind of that too. And
I'm that guy.
Yeah,
mine goes up to 11.
Yeah. And speaking of that, it's also a big episode because we've got a lot of people. So I'm Ryan, of course, and Jose is here.
Hey, this is me, Joe. Jose.
Yeah. And thank you. I wanted to let people know that I have not been mispronouncing your name for 10 years. That's like the
absolutely not.
That's the Portuguese
you've been making
pronunciation.
an effort.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Ryan.
And
we also have Joe and Catalina from Little Spark Films.
That's me. Hello.
Of course, you'll know Joe as Ralph and Catalina as Musette in our RPG Jericho Squad game. We got Ed and Nina today as well. Hey, guys, as usual.
Hey.
Nice.
I'm your blind podcaster. This is the sound of my voice.
Hey, that's a great new microphone.
All right.
And we've got Eric from the Hands-On Workshop. Hey, Eric, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we got Ian Swanson.
Yay.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
I just noticed you sound a little bit like Gene from Bob's Burgers.
Don't tell me what to do.
Is Gene a burger?
No. Gene is the son of Bob's Burgers.
Oh, the son of a burger.
Right. Let's say that.
Okay.
Son of a beach.
But guys, come on. What a thing. I mean,
oh my God.
I am amazed.
I've asked you all here for a very special reason.
Oh my God, you're so close to the microphone.
I do want to say though that before everybody goes, oh no, I don't know spoilers, and they leave, we're going to do a non-spoiler section at the beginning. So we'll talk about our impressions with no spoilers, and then we'll give a quick tease of a video that Ed and Nina have put together an interview with the
Russells.
The Russells, yeah, the special effects group behind the new Hellraiser movie, and then we'll transition into spoilery stuff. Like we're going to talk about everything, and we'll be sort of no holds barred.
So if you haven't seen it,
yeah.
Don't listen.
We'll explore into the further regions of experiencing the movie.
I have to say,
non-spoiler. We're still in non-spoiler time right now.
Right now,
Ryan
yes.
Ryan will indicate.
Yeah, exactly. So that then you can either stop now and save this episode for later until you've seen the movie, or if you want you can hold out for the first few minutes at least if you haven't seen it.
And when we get into spoiler territory, we'll go, spoilers.
All right, so we got Spyglass Media Group and Hulu. They created this amazing new chapter in the Hellraiser universe, which we're probably going to be calling Hellraiser 2022.
Yeah,
I've seen the movie like 3 times already.
I've seen it twice, and I have to say, Jose, when I said this is going to be the best movie in decades, you said, "Oh, you don't know that," but look how it turned out.
Yeah,
now you owe him a Coke, Jose.
Yeah, that's right.
I do. I'll have to make good on that soon. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I'm excited to talk about the movie. I am so happy. I needed this to be good.
Yeah, right.
Are we going to go around in a circle and let each person say what they think and stuff?
Yeah, that sounds good. Do you want to go first, Ed and Nina?
Okay. Well, I am blind, of course, so I will never get to see this film, you lucky bastards out there.
Did you use descriptive audio or descriptive Nina?
Yes, there is a descriptive audio on this, thank goodness.
I'm so
and of
glad
course,
they provided that.
Yeah.
yes. And Nina, of course, helped as well. And, we did this very in-depth interview where they told us all kinds of great information. And so it's, for me being blind as a special effects artist, I'm picturing it all in my head, since months ago, when we started doing these talks and interviews and everything with them. I'm not going to be able to say too much more because it's an audio ear experience for me. And I love the music. The music was, it repeats, the Christopher Young music a little in there. And I really liked that. And the audio aspects of the voices of the Cenobite, like Jamie Clayton's Pinhead voice, I love that. I thought they did a great job with that. And I'll stop talking for a moment. I mean, the other screams and, sounds of torture and pain and stuff like that, that was all very good too. Sound design was great, So I'm going to back off and let Nina say what she thinks.
Well, I was delighted by watching it last night, but we did have some spoilers because of working on the interview. So I did get to see some of the Cenobites
photos
ahead of time. And so the movie was a bit like, oh, turn the lights up. There's times when
it's too dark.
The Cenobites are on screen and you want to get a better look. But yeah.
Wait till you see our photos.
Yeah. So, but I loved the overall atmosphere of it. I liked the lighting, and I liked that the characters looked natural. Although they were all young, it wasn't as pretty faced as some other Hollywood things, because they kind of looked like real people. They weren't it didn't look like 90210 Hellraiser. Odessa looks like a very real person. So
yeah.
I like that description.
Yeah. So the first hour was all like people and you're kind of chomping at the bit to get into the Cenobites. And then the second hour really it delivers.
We don't want to hog the mic.
Oh, no, that's right.
Who's next?
How about Joe and Catalina? What did you guys think?
When it dropped, I was at my job, and I heard that it was dropping at 10 p.m. So I was kind of losing it. We had premeditated staying up till midnight to watch it. And I beelined it home and we put it on, and holy crap. I mean, I think the first thing I said to y'all as soon as we finished it was amazing. It's one of the most beautiful works of art dedicated to film. And I think this Hellraiser movie is definitely going to stand the test of time, even as just a one-off. It was magnificently crafted as a picture. I mean, it was shot like a movie, unlike Hellraiser Inferno through Hellworld.
Yeah.
It didn't look like another episode in the series. It was its own effort that was just fantastic from start to finish. And you could tell that not only was there, some sort of fanfare, but it wasn't put there like the musical cues. They weren't just put there, for fanfare. It was.
Oh yeah, I have that in my notes. We'll talk about that on the spoiler side of things.
Yeah, but stuff like that shows that
they cared.
They genuinely cared.
Yeah.
The other Hellraiser movies for a while. I mean, Gary Tunnicliffe obviously cared when he made Hellraiser Judgment, but he had to split his budget with Children of the Corn.
Right.
So, he did the best he could, which made it feel episodic. This one was cinematic, and it's the first piece of Hellraiser cinema since Bloodline. And
because that was in the theater too.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. But I mean, after that, obviously, when they started doing the straight to video, they lost the cinematic look. They look like straight.
It was almost like it was made for the TV, like
right.
a box.
Ed, just a quick thing, Ed. Can you speak a little further away from the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's good.
Yeah, but no, it had that look like Catalina was just saying. And, some people think that's an easy thing to achieve. And it's not. It's expensive, and that goes with your lenses. And
time takes time on set.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know, and just like I said, from start to finish, they did not pull any punches. It built up amazing from the first gag to the very end, and it just blew me away.
Well, I want to touch on something you said earlier really quick. This is just kind of a little funny anecdote, but that, we were all expecting it to be midnight, like Eastern time. And they dropped the movie early, and not just early Eastern time, but like it was the same time for everybody. So for me, I'm like the earliest time zone here. It was like 6 p.m. the movie came out.
What?
So this is like 6 p.m. the day before it was supposed to release, right? Because I'm on Alaska time, so I bet the people in Hawaii got it even 1 hour earlier than that.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
I honestly figured that they would have done it per time zone.
Yeah.
Well, there was a premiere in Los Angeles on the big screen on Wednesday.
Yeah,
Right.
at another event. And so I wondered if people had maybe been about to pirate it and that Hulu said, oops, we better
put it out.
We better drop it out.
Unless like East Coast was midnight by the time it dropped in Texas,
Yeah.
And they just went by East Coast time.
No,
Boom,
I think it was even earlier than East Coast time.
It would still be earlier.
Right, Jose?
Yeah,
I mean,
East
it wasn't.
Coast is 1 hour.
Yeah, I think it was just, a way to like break it a little early for those who were like trying desperately to reload it. I was very happy that they did that because I was actually in bed by the time that I heard about it. And I was in bed, and my friend David Anderson on Facebook, he's like, oh, my God, it's on Hulu. I'm watching it right now. And I was like, oh, my gosh. Then I got out of bed, and I jumped to my computer, and I logged into Hulu, and I started watching the movie. And I was like, oh, my God, it's happening. And I stayed up that night. I had to work the next day. So I stayed up that night, and then I was watching the movie until like 3 a.m. And then I was kind of overexcited to go to sleep. So I just went to sleep at like 5 a.m. And then I had to get up at 8. And I was like, oh, this is terrible because I had to do a whole day's work. But it was worth it. It was so worth it. And the next day I was watching the movie on mute on my computer while I was working. I had a little laptop, a Chromebook, playing the movie, and I was just watching it again in subtitles. And
it's like having a meteor shower or an eclipse or something where it doesn't happen that often. So you got to get up and watch it.
So are we ready to move on to the next person?
Yeah. Let's do that. We kind of took a little side dive there.
So how about Eric? Eric, as a box designer and someone who's intrinsically connected to the lore,
super fan,
big fan, what did you think about the new Hellraiser movie?
I tried actually not to read anything that was going on about it and just totally be open-minded to it. I wanted to kind of like see it with fresh eyes. I think they've really understood the canon. This isn't like a rebooting or another installment. They've taken the canon and said, and how do we progress from here? And they really created something that resonated back to Clive's original novella. Mm-hmm. Really seemed to catch all the stuff in the novella onto this I was going to say episode because there might be more if this goes over well. I think they crafted it well. I don't think they overhit you with visual. I think everything was balanced in there. Cenobites did have more screen time. There was more there in the show. I don't want to give anything away. I think they really understood what they were doing, and all the parts came together. That's without giving any spoilers away.
Of course. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
You're going to see people on Facebook. Some people are going to complain. Some people are going to rave. Everyone's going to have mixed things. That's what I was staying away from. I didn't want to get into the bits and pieces. Because there's always going to be people that are going to say, oh, it's not what I wanted. It's not what I expected. But no, it's...
No Doug Bradley, no Hellraiser. That's you. That's
Listen, see this for what it is. It's not a continuation of the original. It's a continuation of the canon.
Yeah.
As a box maker, what do you think of the boxes?
Very intriguing. They really put some thought into it. I will give this one part away, and I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, because when the character announced it's the only one of its kind. And I'm like, well, that's not the original box. It's a new box. So obviously that kind of opens up a broader conversation. Is like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
there's different one-of-a-kinds out there floating around in the canon. So now we can actually say there's 2 official.
Yeah, and calls different Cenobites and different rules, maybe.
Who knows?
That's kind of getting into spoilery stuff. So
But yeah,
we'll put a pin in that
Oh, very fun.
with a pearl on the end.
It's
Yes.
I like the shapes of the boxes, and I like how this time it actually looks like a clockwork box that changes shape. And of course, this was limited by the budget and the technology that existed back in Hellraiser 1 and 2. Yeah. But now this is. I particularly enjoyed the idea of the box being part of the ritual, in the sense that it also transforms itself according to each section of the ritual as it develops. So I thought that was fascinating.
I can hardly wait to talk spoilers.
I know. Yeah.
Ian, you're also here. Ian Swanson. Hey, so having gotten off helping to organize the 35th anniversary screening of Hellraiser in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and now being able to watch this movie, what were your impressions of it in a spoiler-free way?
The set designs were glorious. They were really well constructed. I thought the intricacies of how it all played out were pretty crazy and pretty awesome. I really liked the acting from all the actors in the film. It just flowed naturally, and they did a really well polished job, and it just looked glorious on screen as well. I did take note of one of the actors had talked about how it was great that they could just live the part and not have it be like it was a subtext. Like one of the gay actors talked about how it wasn't just a subtext to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually part of the life of the story. I thought that was really quite amazing as well. And the box I really loved. I agree with all of you about the part of the ritual. I thought that was a pretty sweet aspect to it. So that's all I got to say about it in a spoiler-free way.
All right.
I guess I'm the only one that's left, and I have to say,
And me.
in you, yeah.
Joe took all my talking time.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
and Catalina.
Yeah, if you want to go, Catalina, I'll do it after you.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I guess I probably don't really have anything to say that hasn't been said.
Sure, but how did this fulfill all the little checklists that you had in mind? Did it fill all those check marks? Were there things that
didn't fill?
How happy were you?
I honestly didn't have any expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Like, I hope it's good.
Yeah.
And Wednesday night before I went to sleep, I put a wish out, which I don't know if I'm allowed to say. We'll talk about it later, I guess, the spoilery.
Okay.
But the wish was fulfilled, and that was kind of cool. And I just agree with Joe. You know, it looked like a movie, which was nice. We tortured ourselves and watched 5 through 10 this past week. But yeah, we forced ourselves to
refresh your
watch
memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's discouraging. It really is, because it's just like kind of embarrassing. If you only are aware of those, it's like, oh, why do you even like this franchise?
Yeah.
But because it does such a great disservice. But this new one I really, really hope has breathed new life into the franchise, and especially with the Weinsteins not being involved anymore.
Right.
It seems like it's going to be really good from here on out, or at least for the foreseeable future.
It looks like if you've got a whole new generation, that this is going to be their first Hellraiser experience. It's going to make them dig into the older stuff, and it's going to open up a whole new world for them. And for the older generation that have kind of been wincing over every movie that just gets churned out afterwards, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, they've been wincing, hoping for something. This is kind of payback for enduring.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it hits a lot of good notes.
For me, thinking about all the struggles along the last few decades, from people saying that, Hellraiser is a video nasty, or, it corrupts people or whatever from a lack of proper budget or market crashes like it happened with Hellbound when they lost almost a third or half of their budget. From being in the hands of the company like the Weinsteins, like you were bringing up, Catalina, Bob and Harvey, that for years was just they were just greedy and making cheap sequels, trying to hold on to the property for an eventual cycle of we're going to remake it and then we're going to start doing sequels again. Back in 2008, 2009, they were thinking about rebooting the whole thing, and I was like, I don't know, man. You guys are just gonna start the whole milking, yeah.
Keep it out.
Finally, the property, returned to the creator when Clive Barker, they got the rights back. So I think Hellraiser's been through a lot, but yesterday that changed for the better. I'm really happy. Yeah, I was happy with the movie. I was like Catalina. I guess I was into it with a little bit of like a kind of a no expectation kind of thing. Like, okay, what I've seen so far looks really good. And, the talent involved was really good, talented people. So I was like, okay, there's a big chance here. Let's see what happens, because pandemic movies, this and that, But Hellraiser doesn't usually have a lot of characters, doesn't usually have a big cast of characters. So I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. And I was very happy. I was so happy with it. Like, I can't stop watching it. Like I said, I already watched it 3 times. I keep popping it up on my little Chromebook whenever I'm doing something like, let me see if I can get let me see if I can find more details.
The most centibytes ever in a Hellraiser movie.
Right? Yeah. Like, there's a few. We'll get to that. But I was just so happy. And then seeing Clive Barker at the premiere next to David Bruckner and Jamie Clayton, Odessa Zion, and seeing how he was brought into it, and he looked really happy in those pictures at the premiere that you mentioned, Ed.
On Wednesday.
Yeah. There's pictures on Instagram, which I'm sure we'll add to the show notes.
Apparently there was 2 screenings, and Josh Russell told me about it, that he was going.
Right, and the people who were at Fantastic Fest, they had 2 mystery screenings. Beyond Fest,
they had mystery screenings, yeah. No, they were both. They were both at Fantastic Fest and Beyond Fest.
Oh,
okay,
right.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think the one at Fantastic Fest was Werewolf by Night.
Was the other
Hellraiser.
one, right. Marvel, the other one.
Werewolf by Night, yeah. And so once that hit...
Which I love, the comic book Werewolf by Night.
Sorry, real fast, Jose. I wanted to go off of what you said about Bruckner. I highly recommend The Night House. It's on HBO Max. That was his latest film. Obviously, now Hellraiser 2022 is. The Night House, it has a lot of whisperings of Hellraiser lore inside of it. It's not a Hellraiser movie. It's not Hellraiser inspired. But I think you can see, as everyone here is such big fans, I think you can see the ideas in The Night House. I highly recommend it.
I've been meaning to watch that. I've seen The Ritual, but not Night House.
The Ritual was great too.
Yeah, The Ritual was
both
really good.
By David Bruckner.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to watch those. I know that The House, always the location of a Hellraiser movie is important, right? So in the first one, we have a house where everything is taking place. And in this one, another house. And the house has secret passages and this and that. So it's a fascinating thing. And like you said, it calls back to certain things like secret passages in that other movie that David Bruckner did. And
The Night House.
The Night House. So, I definitely have to lean more into his filmography.
I've heard that The Night House was going to be a Hellraiser movie.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you hear that?
I don't know exactly, because because of my blindness, I can't go back to the newspaper or whatever, to find it. But I remember hearing that it was, if you go back and look at the writers who wrote the new Hellraiser and who wrote The Ritual, I think they also wrote The Night House.
Yeah, I think they're all a team. They all work together.
And I believe I heard a podcast where it was, one of the guys, from the writer team might have been the one who said it,
Huh, that's so interesting.
Wow.
You can see with the 2 houses across the lake and all that, and how, the man, supposedly, committed suicide or whatever, and all these. Me and Nina, I can't see it. Me and Nina, we rented it, listened to it I listened to it. She watched it, prior to our interview with the Russells, just so we could try to familiarize ourselves.
Maybe we could
They
do
worked
that
on it,
another
too.
time where we discuss that one just itself. That's up to Ryan and Jose, obviously.
I mean, you could probably easily pepper in some Cenobites and make it a Hellraiser movie.
Yeah. While you
does
guys
have
were
the vibe.
talking, I was looking on my little computer here, and I found out that Bruckner had an interview with the Playlist when the Night House came out. He was talking about the similarities between, the two kind of movies. He said, Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski, who wrote The Night House, took inspiration from Hellraiser for the draft. In
Maybe
some
that's
ways,
it. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah,
in some ways, they called The Night House the Hellraiser movie they would never get to make, in that it had certain parallels, tonal, if nothing else. There's a certain synergy between all these ideas, and there's a mind-bending quality to The Night House that translates well to Hellraiser. In some ways, it's treading familiar terrain, but it's also completely new. So even Bruckner acknowledged that in an interview for the Playlist.
Joe, let me just compliment you. I mean, because of my blindness, I am so unable to do what you just did. Like, just get on the internet, quickly look something up. Thank you. That was great.
Yeah, I got the Google foo at my fingertips.
That's your Cenobite superpower.
Yes, my fingers separate into many little things, and then I can just type really fast.
All right. Well,
And while you guys were talking about the Night House and stuff, it reminded me that how much takes place in the second half in a location that harkens back to haunted houses, Demon Night, Empty Old House, Haunting of Hill House, those kind of
Evil Dead.
Yeah, once you get to a certain point in the narrative, it sort of remind me a bit of that.
Oh yeah, that's in my notes for spoiler time.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I'll say my part really quick here, so then we can move on to that. So when we started this podcast in 2011,
10 years ago.
yes, the Hellraiser Revelations was the new Hellraiser movie, and so that was our new thing to talk about, our new Hellraiser thing to talk about as a brand new podcast, and I was punching my chair the whole way through this movie. This is the worst thing I have ever seen. This is offensive. It was offensive to everything that's Hellraiser, even offensive to the movies that came before it, which weren't very good. And so I feel like it's come a long way, and it's such a relief. I mean, Hellraiser Judgment had some good ideas that we really praised, because there was some things about it that were they were able to pull stuff off on a micro budget, but there's other things where you can really see the strings. I mean, that's not a police station, that's like somebody's apartment, and there's only 2 people in it. How can you call this a police station? But whatever.
It's like our amateur films.
Well, as I said, Judgment felt pretty episodic. In Revelations, the story with Revelations, we just watched it, is pretty well. I don't know. I got a little convoluted there in the ending because we couldn't figure out who was who anymore, and it had
because the makeup was so terrible.
Yeah, and then the very final shot of the movie was trash. So you know what? Anything positive I was about to say, just forget it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I had to hate one, it'd be Hellworld.
Yeah.
I hate Hellworld.
Oh, well, in Hellworld, when you do repeat viewings of Hellworld, the plot doesn't make sense, right? Because the big reveal is that they were all like on drugs the whole time, and nothing was real. But then when you watch it, there's stuff that happens that's not even in the point of view of the characters that are supposed to be dreaming.
And aren't they buried underground in coffins?
Yeah, they're buried underground.
Yeah.
Right. But don't lose the plot here. You were going to address your
I'd like to. So just to finish up, this was like happy tears instead of frustrated, like angry tears, right?
I hear you, brother.
Yeah, and so watching this, even from the very opening, where it's those sort of dilapidated apartment buildings are going by, and it's playing that like powerful music, and like that kind of unsettles you. Which that is not a Hellraiser theme. That's a new theme. And I have to say, I really loved that they brought back the Hellraiser 1 and 2 themes, but I also love the new music that they added to this film.
Yeah, the music was great.
Yeah, and the actors were good. I especially appreciated Riley because she seemed so real.
Yeah.
And the rest of the actors were good too. I think the person I think the Nora character was like, we didn't get much of her, and we'll get
The roommate. Is that the roommate?
Yes,
Yeah.
and we'll get more into that in the spoilery section. But other than that, I mean, geez, yeah, just a great movie all around. And I'll stop there and save the rest of it for the spoilery section.
Enough said.
Yeah.
Are we about to start getting into spoilers now?
Yeah, so that for everybody that's listening that hasn't watched the movie, we are going to be getting into spoilers. At this point, I'm going to.
Okay.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
That sounded like a truck backing up. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna edit in. Here's an excerpt from Ed and Nina's interview with Russell FX, talking about the film, which has some minor spoilers in it.
Right, but not too bad. I mean, especially for just this clip. The clip is only like 5, maybe 10 minutes at the most, and
it's 5.5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, what it's basically intended to do is entice you to want to come and listen to the whole interview, because it's over an hour long. I think total hour is like almost 2 hours, right, Nina?
Maybe an hour and 15 minutes.
So I guess my question then to you guys is this going to be available for us to link to in the show notes by tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have that. We'll have that for you to click on and follow the link then tomorrow in our show notes. I mean,
Okay, now
tomorrow as it's posted. So yeah.
Okay, and after this clip, we're going to get back to spoilers. So here's the clip.
It's the kind of effect that like would totally just be relegated to VFX in most productions. Like if this were something on TV, or even most movies who didn't have experience doing these kind of effects, they would have said, the CG guys got it. Just show us the final form, and then we'll just make him look normal and do all the peeling in the computer. And none of us wanted to do that. Dave was adamant we figured this out. And it's one of the most fun effects in the movie.
It wouldn't have been Hellraiser with that kind of stuff, without that in there.
That's what we all said. That was our mantra every time we talked about, like, well, let's just fix it in the computer. Like, no. God damn it, this is Hellraiser.
Thank you. That's what we want. So go on now. Tell us what from that VFX touch-up stuff, and did you have to do, like all these other creature effects, like the removal of the head, the green screen sock? Was there other things like that for some of the other ones, like the tubes and stuff that go in the other guy?
I think everybody we knew that there was going to be, especially again, back to how many Cenobites we had. And we had 3 days where it was all of them, on the same day, those were big days. So they, especially wear and tear and going through and all the weather, and we knew that there was always going to be some cleanup, but we always try to not rely on that the best that we could.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of CG augmentation, it was all sort of planned out from the beginning. But like, let's be clear, this is a rubber monster movie top to bottom. The CGI is not creating anything. All it's doing is pinching forms and, changing geometry, just
cleaning things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Moving and stuff. That's great. I love to hear that. I mean, VFX and practical can work together and play nice.
100%. And I think also, we did with Keith Thompson and Dave Bruckner, we did The Ritual together, so we also already have that kind of
working relationship and everything.
Relationship in the 50-50 with the CG and the practical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like one fun thing where we needed like green screen removal stuff was when we were talking, I was saying Weeper's arms bisect and separate and she controls them. So we did that with a few different methods. We built gloves that went on her and they were cut down the middle. So she would put a green screen glove on first. And then depending on the shot, she would put half of her hand into one side of the glove. And then we would put a foam insert with armature wire in the other half of it and pose it how we needed to, and then rod puppeteer that. And then it would change depending on what her action was. She would put her hand into the other side of the glove. So you can't really track, which side is the puppet side and which side is the actor side, because the way it edits together, it just looks like all of the fingers are constantly doing something.
That's cool.
All they had to do was rod removal and green screen removal.
When you guys made that big body form mold and everything and had to sculpt all that, who sculpted all that stuff? Was it members of the crew from America that came over and you, or was it people in Serbia as well?
Are you referring to the Voight thing? That was all in Serbia. We had a team over there, probably like 6 or 7 different sculptors working on that thing all at once.
Were they the kind of guys that had been in that area working on other movies? Because so many American films have been coming over there to film and stuff.
Oddly enough, no, not at all. Because there is so much production over there, like most people were just busy at the time. What we ended up getting for our crew seemed to be a whole lot of like art students or art majors that had worked classical sculpture and that sort of stuff. We have one guy, Mickey.
I was just gonna say, Mickey.
Mickey, the Tom Savini of Serbia. He's the guy behind the Serbian film.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. And Hellraiser's like his favorite thing in the world, so he was elated to be on it with us.
He was happy. Nina, do you have any questions?
Oh, well, I was able to see the pictures of the mask that came out so recently. So
Entertainment Weekly.
He was really interesting. I was trying to describe it to Ed. So
with no head.
So the mask itself was a practical physical thing in front of in front of the actor's head.
Yeah. And then we had, like Josh had brought up, but we had our Serbian jewelers, and they made all of our weird things, halos, whatever we kind of needed, pretty jewelry on these disgusting creeps.
Yeah, that was cool. I can't wait to see the rest of the interview
and the photos that we provide.
Oh yeah, awesome.
Because there's a Fangoria that's coming out this month that's going to have Jamie Clayton as Pinhead on the cover. And there's already some pictures going off on Facebook that you can find also in that article that's going to come out. So there's a lot of material just exploding all over the internet right now. And this is going to be some really behind the scenes, never before seen stuff. Thanks to Ed and Nina. And thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome. Right. And my friend Jeremy Aiello, who is the man who sculpted the new Jamie Clayton Pinhead appliances, he may be coming on for an interview on the podcast in the future. I'm absolutely looking forward to that. Keep tuned for that one. We're working on making that a thing. So, all right, now it's time to really nerd out and go a little bit off on the story and things that we really, really liked and worked for us, I guess. Spoilers. Yep.
Yeah, we wrote out during our second watch last night. Catalina wrote out like all these bullet points as to what our notes would be. There's a lot to talk about when this movie.
I had some predictions in previous episodes, and I was thinking like, okay, there's going to be this. As soon as I knew there was going to be this rich guy, like described as a 1%er occultist, and I was like, okay, so he's going to be the guy who has the boxes, and someone's going to go in there and maybe try to steal them or something. And then I said, I thought that Voight was trying to bring someone back from hell, maybe someone that he needed. And I was totally wrong. So
that's on the record.
No.
That's on the record.
I mean, they do steal from him. So, that part was right. I think just really.
You rolled the dice, you lost,
Yeah.
Well, the last little bit was wrong.
He set that up for them to steal from him, though.
Mm-hmm. True.
He does try to bring himself back, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the way that they picked some of the best beats of the original movies and put them all together. Like when we see the first Hellraiser opening, we see the call to prayer, and then Frank is buying the box and is like buying the box from someone. And this movie is kind of that opening as well, right? So that's one of the
Well,
beats
isn't
that's
the very
just there.
beginning of Hellraiser where they're picking up the pieces of the Frank's face first?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. But there is a scene of someone buying the box, which I think was one of the beats from the original movie that is fascinating. And so that's where this one new movie starts, with someone buying the box, making an exchange, right?
Yeah.
So we already have a bargain opening up the movie there. So a lot of money.
That guy is a puzzle guardian, or just some guy that just happens to have the box? I mean, he took a lot of money for it.
I think he's just some guy.
Yeah.
That's a good question, because the concept of puzzle guardians from classic Hellraiser,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, there really wasn't
There really wasn't, though, I don't think,
not,
in this one.
Not in this movie. Yeah.
No derelicts or anything.
Yeah.
I almost thought, after watching the movie, I went back to that on my second viewing, and I thought if this might have been one of the guys who picked the lament configuration at the end of the ritual. So now he's just passing the box along to the next person.
Yeah.
I think
So
that makes sense.
Yeah. He seemed to be regretful in a way. I imagine if that was his burden to get rid of the box. So if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm trying to refer here, I hope.
Yeah.
The lady that takes the box and puts it away, what show is she from?
Succession?
Succession, that actress. But she's the one that dies in the nursing home later, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one of cancer? The one that has cancer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She plays Menaker.
But she was talking about how the estate wanted her to go hide the box or whatever. Like that was one of the guy's last wishes before he supposedly died. So the guy who delivered the box at the beginning of the movie to her when he was sitting on the bench, I mean, I don't really know where he comes from. I guess he could have been a puzzle guardian. Now that
My thoughts is
he wasn't derelict.
He reminded me of Kircher that was featured in the in production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think what Jose was trying to say is that if he's someone who accepted the lament configuration in this new idea of the ritual having 6 parts to it,
and the pricking of your skin to make you bleed.
He went through his own situation. He went through his own adventure, so to speak. And then he takes the lament configuration and he has to give it to the next person so the ritual can start again.
Okay.
Yeah, and he does say that he wished that he could have met Voight in person. And she said he never does anything that he can hire someone else to do.
Right. I thought that was very important line.
Hint, right, exactly. Hint to what's going to happen later in the film.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And my second viewing of the movie, I watched it a lot to see the hints of the things that fooled me the first time. So like Trevor set the whole thing up, right? That fooled me. I didn't realize until he confessed it. Or until we saw him.
The second time we were in his apartment, I was really confused as to how he had such a nice place. Like, that's a really nice place.
Yes.
For someone who's broke.
For someone who's supposedly broke and has no job. And then I kept on asking Joe, I was like, maybe he's a model and that's why he keeps, different hours, so on and so forth. So if he's a model, obviously Voight hangs out with models because that was the first person we meet at the very, very beginning. Someone with, that facial structure.
And now the second time through, him like grabbing the box and trying to run down the stairs with it makes sense. Him telling Nora, or when Nora's saying, there's someone in the walls, and he says, oh, she's just babbling or whatever. She's just, that makes sense now all of a sudden, right?
So, Trevor, let me just contextualize this a little bit. So, Odessa Zion plays Riley.
The spoilers section is for people who have seen the movie.
Right. So I just want to bring up that. So Trevor, I think at one part of the movie, we understand that he does. He makes deliveries and pickups shipments for art collectors. So I imagine that he makes quite a bit of money doing that. But he's kind of broke because he's in a drug rehabilitation program, right?
Rehabs.
Yeah. So he's probably spent all his money on drugs. As now he met Riley on that thing. I like what you were saying, Ryan, that on the second viewing, you can see the way that he's trying to use Riley as a mark, even in the sense, even in the sense that when he does start bringing up that, if you want to make money, you're tired of being broke, there's a job, and it's like, nah, never mind, I don't want to say it, and then she keeps saying, say it, it's like, no, I don't know, you're gonna be like, and she's like, and he's trying to like neg her in a way
Yeah.
so that she gets more interested. And even when they're actually going to the place where
He
the
might be
shipment,
grooming her to turn her into
Yeah.
a prostitute or something.
Yeah. I didn't get that feeling because they mentioned the shipment pretty quickly. But when they go to the shipment, he even we see her trying to open the safe. He lets her take a crack at it so she can get more invested in trying to find out what's inside the safe.
Yeah.
So I thought that you could see that he's letting her get drawn into that mystery.
No.
Oh yeah, I wrote down the line when she opens the safe. There's a trick to everything is an important line.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I mean, as a non-sighted person listening to it and listening to the description and everything, it seemed ridiculous to me that these two idiots could break into a safe with a sledgehammer and stuff.
It was a pretty crappy looking safe, though. I mean,
Really?
it had a little brass handle that you turn around, and it didn't look like much.
It looked very formidable.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a 2-foot tall safe. And
Yeah.
they use a crowbar to pry it open. I've seen people already complaining on Facebook that,
About
that's not
that.
how it works. If you break that thing, then the things won't rotate. And I'm like, okay, yeah. But then if you
But
go
clearly
back to it.
Clearly, the whole thing is a setup
It's
for
a setup.
Trevor to
Yeah.
get her to go get the box. He's paid
That
to
too.
do it.
He just had
Yeah.
to convince her that they were breaking into the safe. They didn't have to actually break into a safe.
I think that's a
Right.
big point that the audience isn't necessarily picking up on, is that it was all a setup.
Yeah.
It goes back to Riley's brother saying, I don't like him. Who meets a guy in a 12-step program? So
Yes. Yeah.
he was there looking for Mark. He found her, and everything after the point, from the time he mentioned the job onward, he was leading her and letting her make her
Yeah.
own choices. He would not put his hands on anything. When he took the box, he wrapped it. He would not have his hands on any of that.
Even him slipping out accidentally saying I love you is total manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did was the time slip between the Voight solving the configuration and then was it 6 years?
Yeah.
6 years.
Okay.
So that means
The long con.
Yeah.
well, something. I mean, you don't think he could have found somebody sooner than that?
Yeah, I was just wondering. But I was also wondering, was that Trevor? They were screwing or whatever in the beginning. Was that
Yeah.
Trevor that was with her? And then it flashed
Yeah.
to 6 years? Okay.
Yeah, and
By the
and
way,
they-
remember
the interesting part about when they come out of her bedroom and all of the roommates and friends are all there, and he's like oh, you told them about me. That's like a manipulation, right? Because this whole con, he just wanted to be between him and her. He didn't want
Right.
anybody else to know about it because that
That's why
implicates
it's so
him.
skittish. Yeah.
It implicates him in a crime, and then they invited him to dinner. He's like, "No, I got to go. I'm working right now." And
Yeah.
Well, I felt like
It
she
was
didn't.
tapas, not dinner.
I
Well,
felt like because when they invited him to dinner, he just looked at her like he was kind of considering it, but she gave him a "you better fuck off" look.
oh,
Yeah.
Odessa as Zion as Riley, total Kirsty vibes. Even there's a part where she at one point wears almost like a kind of a jacket that kind of looks like Kirsty's brown distressed jacket. And she's got the curly hair.
Yeah.
And I thought that she was so intense throughout the whole movie. I really liked her work, Odessa. And
a Kirsty
Oh, yeah.
vibe, but she's got problems. I mean, her life is not together, and how long it takes her to figure out that she's leading people
Right.
to die is a little scary.
yeah, in that
I have
sense,
a
she's
quick-
not. Yeah, go ahead.
a quick observation. Do you notice that the name Trevor is from another Hellraiser movie? Which one was that?
Oh.
Was it
6, I think.
Hellseeker?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hellseeker. Yeah, it's supposed to
with
be
Kirsty?
It's the
Kirsty's
Beaver
husband.
Well, yeah, at the very beginning, the guy that dies, his name is Joey, and there's
Yeah.
Oh, from Hellraiser 3.
from Hellraiser 3 and Hellraiser Hellworld.
Oh,
I wonder if they intentionally did that.
There
I
was
don't
a
know.
Joey.
Trevor, maybe. Yeah, Joey. I'm not sure.
There was a Joey in Hellworld.
Yeah.
It might have been Hellworld or Revelations, but there's a couple of them that have the name Joey.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
oh.
I forget. Is Joey the guy that gets the pillar in the third? I forget his name.
Oh,
Joey's
yeah.
the blonde
She's the
lady.
reporter.
She's a reporter in the
she's
third
the
movie.
reporter.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
the,
yeah, yeah.
the main character
What-
in 3.
What's the guy who gets the
J.P.
the,
Monroe.
JP? That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
J.P.
He kinda-
Monroe.
Oh,
When you
good
guys
old
talked
JP.
about him being a model, he kind of reminded during that part of the conversation. I was like, oh, maybe he's kind of like JP a little bit.
Yeah, he did have that kind of vibe.
Killed his parents with that gun.
Yeah, well, and when they said like the three people that disappeared, one of them was a sex worker. I thought that was him, right? Wasn't it? wasn't he like a gigolo or something?
I thought he was just a model.
Yeah.
So
he was rich. He was rich.
Now, we're talking about that scene where the model is at the party at Voight's house, and you can see it's a very eyes wide shut kind of party, right? There's like I even saw in the background people are like making love and on some couches and stuff.
They were not making love.
They were screwing.
Yeah, they were having sex.
That model in the beginning of the film, he did stand out like a sore thumb in that whole crowd.
There was the rose petals on the bed.
He was he you can tell that
casually.
He was brought in there and he didn't know why he was invited.
Right.
Yeah.
He was dressed casually,
and then he approached an older lady, to try to strike up a conversation with her, and that made me think that he was a prostitute,
a gigolo.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that she struck up the conversation with him.
He went and sat by her, though.
She was an old cultist.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if it's a sex party with really rich people, I don't think they need to hire anybody. That's, I mean, like, I personally don't.
I think you're right. It's like eyes wide shut. They didn't have to hire
They
anyone.
would just invite people to the party, and beautiful people would just show up.
They just got to cater the baby blood, the guy, and you got a party guy.
That guy Joey.
The adrenochrome.
Well, yeah, but they didn't hire him for that, right? They hired him to. I mean, he was hired by Voight to be a sacrifice.
Well, he never does anything he can't get someone else to do.
Yeah.
So that's another instance of, he wants to move to the next step of the configuration.
Yeah, it's
I
think that's a very important line.
It's almost solved. It's amazing how much he must have had to study this thing before he started playing with it, because like it would be really easy to cut yourself on that, and then it's all over.
He walks into this room after he gets told by the lady to go there, and he sees that cool inner sanctum almost. I'm calling it the inner sanctum of like Voight's house. And there's other objects there, but the box, it really looks like the box has a calling to him, right? He looks at the box and the camera kind of focuses into it. And I thought that brought in that notion that the box calls out to you, that it seduces you. That
like the ring in Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Now, Ryan's point, though, he said like Voight had studied this. They did kind of like give hints about that when Riley was going through his diary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had that big area.
It shows the dates where he's actually like he's been dealing with them for quite a while, and each time more and more something happens, and now people
he takes notes.
Yeah,
and it says in the notes that more are joining, that the pedestal in that room was a specific height and specific design, and it was an altar. It wasn't a pedestal.
The house itself, I think, is like an altar or something.
Yeah,
I felt like the house was more. I would have considered it a church.
Yeah.
At that point, when Joey was sacrificed,
I think it was more like a puzzle box.
That when Joey was sacrificed, that was the final configuration to give him his prize. It changed from the Lazarus to the Leviathan.
The house looked more like a puzzle box, and they had that theme: the box within the box within the box within the box. Sort of
which they say like when they open the safe, right? And that was kind of a cool little hit theme that was disguised as a throwaway line.
Layers upon layers.
That's all I got right there.
The house itself was planned out. I mean, at first we don't know a lot about Voight. We just think, this guy's definitely rich. But then later on, when Riley is talking to Trevor and they're finding out that the box that they took belonged to Voight, they start looking into who's Ronald Voight on the internet, and they find out there's some articles that say mysterious occultist, disappears without a trace, right? So that's where we find out that he also definitely was an occultist. And that the house might have been built according to, like Eric was saying, very specific instructions. Just like in the original novella, there was a ritual to calling the Cenobites. You had to have a plate of dove's heads. You had to have something at hand for some act of self-degradation.
The jar of urine,
a jar of urine or something. It's never implied if that was, directly mentioned or if it's just something that he came up with on his own, at least Frank. But it looks like definitely Voight is kind of a Chenard character in the sense that he's been researching this for a long time, right? So that's another beat, another thing from like Hellbound that they brought into this quality to this character. He's like a Chenard.
Researching it for a long time, but also afraid to do the puzzle box himself, just like Chenard.
Well, he knows better.
Right.
Well, Joe and I talked about the Chenard connection too at length, and I'm really grateful that they brought that back around because it is an interesting thing that deserves more exploration.
It wasn't necessarily that Voight was wary of opening it himself. It was more so that was what he was instructed to do, because that was what Riley was instructed to do as well.
True.
Yeah,
That's fair.
Yeah, because I mean the Hell Priestess, or one of the Cenobites stated, go get us some more souls. And I think that's what, J.P. Monroe was kind of doing for
The
Pinhead
pillar,
when he was stuck in the Pillar of Souls. Just go collect me some souls and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
So if I can go...
I gotta take off, everyone. I gotta go back to the Candyman conference that's happening.
Okay.
Okay. Have fun.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks
Do your report back on that.
Yeah.
You got it.
I will do my best.
So if I could go back to Eric Gross for a little bit, just to talk about, we were looking at some of the screenshots from the movie, and we were looking at the names of the different configurations. And so there was the regular cube, right? That's called
from the Notebook. You're talking about
from the notebook, yes. So
that's a great looking notebook too.
It is. I want a copy of that. The cubic one is just called the Lament configuration, and that is written in the notebook Life, which I guess
subtitles, right?
Yeah, they do have subtitles. Then there's the weird trapezoid thing that it turns into after the first victim.
Lore.
Which is lore, right?
Yeah.
So you get knowledge. Then there's another one called Lauderant, which looks like almost like if you ever seen the Mobius Incal, it's like two triangles stuck through each other. So
is that
it looks like a
French
star.
word? Is that a French word?
Which one? Lauderant?
Yeah.
I think it's Latin. I think it means to laud something. Laud in the sense of like praise, love. So Lauderant is the love configuration.
When we first watched it, I thought she said laundromat.
It's the laundromat configuration.
Then it turns into a longish kind of rectangle parallel, kind of thing, which is the Lazarus. And that's what Joey in the beginning of the movie sees it in Voight's house. It's in that kind of big pillar kind of rectangle resurrection.
But straight on, it looks like just a regular puzzle box, and then they kind of move over and it's like, whoa, that thing's stretched out.
Yeah. And then after that one is solved, then it turns into the Leviathan configuration, which is another callback to Hellbound, where the box finally turns into the Leviathan diamond, which I've always loved that configuration from Hellbound. And they brought it back for this, which I thought was really, really nice of them to do.
Yeah.
Real fast so I can run in here. So the wish that I sent out to the universe Wednesday night was, wouldn't it be nice if they brought back Leviathan?
Oh my God.
And did they
now
ever?
She has been avoiding the trailer since it dropped. She's been trying to avoid every trailer.
I avoided the trailer. I've tried to avoid everything because when I wanted to watch it completely brand new, no idea no clue of anything. Like I didn't even read what the synopsis was.
Ryan, like from her lips to God's eyes.
I know it's silly though, because obviously the movie was already, has been completed for a long, long time, but it was very, very happy news that they brought Leviathan back.
No, I completely appreciate what you're talking about, because avoiding spoilers is something that's really important to me too. And seeing something fresh. Like when I went to see From Dusk Till Dawn, I thought it was going to be a Tarantino sort of a crime spree movie. I had no idea that it had vampires until I was in the theater.
Well, it was both.
Yeah.
But it is a really fun reveal.
Yeah.
Speaking of From Dusk Till Dawn, our copy that we have of the screenplay has an introduction by Clive Barker.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
We had that as a one of our Kickstarter rewards one time.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So returning to the screenshots that I was looking at with Eric earlier, Eric, so as a guy who thinks of these boxes as three-dimensional, and you've created a lot of CGI art of box designs, many various box designs, and you had that book, the Toy Maker Magnum Opus. This box actually looks very clockworky. And what did you feel about the different configurations and how they rotate and stuff like that?
I think they got what Clive originally intended in there, and then they also gave homage to Simon in a lot of good ways, and then they expanded upon that. I mean, even in the Notebook, there's this one section where they actually take the idea of the box. Let me see if I could. I shared the image with you. It's it's from the diary. It says perhaps a design that's translated onto a dimension. So they've actually gotten away from the whole concept of containing it within the box, and then the box is only a physical manifestation here. But in the notes, it says the thing is not bent, but it's reconstructed as you solve it. It breaks apart and comes back together in new ways that we can't fathom.
Yeah.
Like the people that are tortured with this by the Cenobites. They're taken apart and put again together in different shapes.
Yeah.
Weird ways.
You don't know about the amount of hooks that are used, and it's all based on the weight that the body can support. I don't know. They're like little bits and pieces within the Notebook that I was looking at.
Wow. You know, as far as the chains go, one thing I noticed right away too is the chains all had double hooks on the end, which is a new thing for. It's not a big deal, but it's a new thing for Hellraiser, right? And it looks, you know, even more painful than the old movies.
Right. The single hook.
Yeah.
The double hooks can support the human weight better, so that they can get more. The fact that it talked about the amount of chains used, I found it interesting that like when Joey solved the puzzle, they didn't really focus a lot on him. It was like he was in the background. You'd see a chain here and there flip. You knew it was going on, but the focus was on Voight taking the Leviathan configuration and putting it on the altar.
That is a great shot.
Right?
When they do that tracking shot that he's talking about, and he's like Voight's looking at the Leviathan configuration. You see him in the
Joe's
background.
in the background.
Oh, you're talking about the first one, right, with Joey?
Right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God.
An amazing shot.
It's being chained in the background, kind of a lot of focus. And,
that's the moment when I think maybe I'm speaking for everybody when people are like, I'm in. Oh my God, look at this. You know,
they didn't take the camera and focus on Joey and all the gore going on. He was like, okay, your part's done. Here's the
Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah, no, he's not important.
Yeah.
And
We don't care about that guy.
He was not important. He was a sacrifice.
And they saved the Cenobites for later, which was like, whoa.
Which was nice.
Yeah, I mean, it was totally a tease.
A tease because before the Cenobites even entered, he was on his knees praying to Leviathan. Leviathan was showing up. So
yeah,
why did you need the Cenobites when the main guy was coming?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Which I'm glad that they did, because I mean, like, it sucks, and I'm sure, like, you know, we all know that the Cenobites were never meant to be the main. Well, I mean, Pinhead or Hell Priest themselves was never really meant to be the main character. You know, originally it was going to be Julia and everything, and people wanted the Cenobites only. But the problem with that is that, you know, if you only give Cenobites, it takes away from the Cenobites. It takes away the impact of the.
In other words, if you see the monster too much,
it's the same argument people make about Godzilla movies, right? Is that the human story versus the the monster action,
right?
Yeah.
And why are you watching this movie if it's not for the monster action?
Yeah.
Well, you're watching it because it's called Hellraiser, and Julia was the lady who rose hell. And so forth.
I appreciated all the supernatural elements of the movie, of course, but I also thought that one of my anxiety about this movie was going to be like, how are the characters going to be talking to each other? Is it going to be an interesting story behind all that stuff? Is the stuff that's going to be carrying this between the different characters, you know, the human characters, is it going to be interesting, or is it just going to be like awkward or cringy, like the Hellraiser Revelations when they're going to Tijuana, and it's just terrible.
Oh my God. I've crossed the Rubicon.
Yeah, right. and I just thought that
or a slasher where it's just 1, 2, 3, 10 little Indians, victim, victim, victim.
Yeah.
Right. Like Hell World. That's going to be the noise that's going to happen every time you mention that blasted movie.
That one in Revelations.
Yeah. So I really appreciated that the characters were actually interesting, and the way that they were going about things. They were investigating things here and there, and I thought that particularly Voight. I mean, I was watching.
Saying the writing is good.
The writing and the acting, like Voight, Goran Visnich. I hope I'm pronouncing that name. He was such a good villain in this movie. He's so intense, and he was acting like crazy.
Doing the scenery, as they call it.
I love that guy. I love the work he was doing into it, and Odessa was being so intense as Riley, and she's just. I felt sorry for her, really, because she's always like, she can't catch a break, and she really has her heart on her sleeve throughout the entire movie. It's such a intensity of performance, and I really love the whole thing, the whole way that this was constructed.
I felt bad.
Yeah, about Odessa. It's funny because a few days ago, Joe was complaining that it was about someone who was in recovery. He didn't like that idea. Sorry, Joe.
Well, it's just, I think that's kind of a cop-out. That's like a calling it in sort of a... That's
what he said. Okay, obviously this is before we watched it. And then when we were watching it, I was taking my notes again last night because the first time we watched it, we just watched it, but I wrote about how since she's in recovery, we don't know her at all. Like, we don't know anything about her. We don't know how bad she ever
backstory.
Got. Her backstory. And I and I appreciate that you don't know anything, because it's interesting. The story will be different for every single person, depending.
Yeah, you make it up on your own, in your own head.
Right, exactly. In your head of how bad is, being someone who's addicted to drugs. And this is me, doing little quotation marks. Because for some people it's like, oh man, they're an alcoholic or whatever, or but maybe that's not the type of drugs you do.
Or they were turning tricks and had 100 abortions and just all kinds of horrible life.
But we don't. Yeah, exactly. We don't know anything about her, and it's interesting because you can see because it'll be the audience is heavily involved in how they perceive this character, which is pretty cool.
So. The liminality of the transitional period between someone who's in recovery, so they're in a transitional state, so they're not really who they are, they're trying to be someone else, is kind of a reflection of the liminality of when you find yourself in a deal with the Cenobites, when you find yourself in that liminal space of Leviathan's hell and stuff. So I appreciate that.
And maybe that's what makes her so strong too.
Yeah. And
she's in that transitional phase of her life.
She was definitely a three-dimensional, fleshed-out character. I mean, she had, that scene when she dumps the pills out on the ground of good. It's good for you, but then she scoops them up again.
But then she picks up 3 pills anyway.
Yeah,
which is perfect. Perfect for her character, because that's what she would do.
What do you think those pills were? Quaaludes,
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, painkillers.
Oh. Also, there's a line of dialogue when she's arguing with her brother about the rent, and she makes a comment that the tips have been real shit lately. So, I mean, she's a waitress, and that's just one line of dialogue. And if you work in food and beverage or any sort of service industry, that speaks miles that what she's suffering through, the stress she's already going through.
You're tired, your feet hurt, your back hurts. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
oh no, dude, I cried so much in my, just doing food and beverage, because people are horrible. People are horrible. They say if you're a server, if you're any sort of anything in food and beverage industry, people go, oh, well, you must have done something in your life to, put you here. You must not be, intelligent enough or whatever. They treat you like scum.
And they don't want to tip.
And that's, you make all your money on tips in the United States. It's legal to pay these people $2.13 an hour.
Yeah.
Because the tips are what makes up the money.
Wage.
But anyway, the point is that people are really, really awful. And if they're having a bad day, they are going to take all of those feelings and anger and put it on you, because they're never going to see you again. So they feel like it's fine to be completely terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
So
she's probably super stressed out. Back to the movie. She's super stressed
on
out.
top of that, but there's just the one line of dialogue, tips have been shit lately. It's like, damn. So she is going through recovery, and she's dealing with the fact that she has to put up with everyone else's BS. She's the cheap therapist.
It's relatable. Yeah.
Yeah, very. I'm the cheap therapist. I felt for her on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's like she was never really owning it in the beginning either. It's like it was always somebody else's fault. It wasn't her fault. Her life was going this way. It wasn't her fault. The tips weren't coming to her. That was the whole point. They set it up to show you that she was this really damaged person, and that the more damaged she became, the more she fed her addiction. So it was a bad cycle. I think when she had her first run-in with the Cenobites, they kind of looked at her and go like, "Yeah, we wanted Voight to pick you. We're interested in you. He showed who he is to us. We're not interested in that. You've got material to work with."
Yeah, Voight doesn't want to get his hands dirty, but definitely the Cenobites want to get to know Riley because, of her nature of her addictive personality and that she actually organically gets interested into this whole situation. And she is the one that holds on to the box, and she's the one who opens the box the first time.
I can't believe she manages to avoid getting cut somehow.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a controversial thing. I've seen a lot of people online complain about that. I don't like that now. It's not the person who solves the box. It's just the person who gets, slashed by the hook that comes out. I don't like that.
Technical Hellraiser lore.
I was okay with that.
I like it because I feel like this is a different set of Cenobites and a different set of rules.
A different box.
Yeah. A different box,
right,
exactly.
It's a new iteration, and so therefore there can be new rules. And I appreciate that the rules were very well thought out, and they followed them. They said, "Here's the rules," and they followed through with them.
Yeah, I like that.
They followed them.
And it introduces the bargaining thing, right?
Yeah.
Because if you open the box and you don't get cut, you still get to be under the thrall of the Cenobites. You'll still show up, and they'll be like, "Okay, well, you opened the box, you didn't get cut." But someone's going to have to get cut, and if not you, another.
Someone. Yeah.
In my mind, and I have no proof of this, but this is how I see it: is that Hellraiser 1 and 2 happened, right? And after Hellraiser 2, all the Cenobites got murdered by Channard, and Channard died. This movie happens after Hellraiser 2, with a new box and a new set of Cenobites.
That's interesting. Also, if you go back to the comic books, there's all kinds of boxes.
I mean, you could.
Right, that was what we were wondering.
You could spin it like, is this a box from Le Marchand? I mean, there's a lot of unaccounted time. This could have been something else that he made, or did the Lament configuration that we all know and loved, designed by Simon Sassy, did that evolve? Did it change itself into what we currently see in this new movie? I mean, I can see it going either way.
I could understand that.
And let's not forget that Voight's Inner Sanctum has other pillars with other things under glass.
Right, like Channard's Inner Sanctum.
Right.
I mean,
but
Eric,
Channard had like 6 puzzle boxes though, and
3.
So he had 3. Yeah. So then it wasn't one of a kind back then.
Right. But Eric, you did bring up that there's a line in the movie where Voight says this is a one of a kind puzzle. So I wonder if he's saying that that's the only thing that activates Leviathan, that opens up the thing, or if it's just that particular one is one of a kind. Each one is one of a kind. There's not a bunch of same looking boxes.
Actually, what he said is it's the only one of its kind. It's always been my interpretation that there can be lots of boxes out there, but one of each.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course. Okay, that's what I was thinking too. Yep.
This one has.
I think also that he doesn't necessarily know. It's what he has found out, but he doesn't know all the facts.
He seems to know more than anybody else in the movie, though.
Right, but that's just still doesn't mean he knows,
Right. And
also, though, but just by the rules itself of the existence of the occult world, you're always going to have new information or information that isn't correct, or because it's all of it has to be so secretive.
Right.
I mean, there's no way in the world he could literally know everything about the lore itself of the boxes.
The esoteric knowledge.
Unless someone probably chooses the lore configuration, right?
Then they learn the knowledge.
Because we can go into that a little bit.
Yahoo on Facebook who acts like they know everything, and
we can just. We can just, I want to know more about what each of the decisions, because so once you slash someone and the blood spills onto the box, that is kind of what seals the deal. Right. Until that happens, there's that blood sacrifice that needs to be fulfilled so the Cenobites can go away and take whoever was marked. And then...
Wait. Back up 1 second. 1 second.
Yeah.
Before you finish that thought. She did the first configuration. Riley did the first configuration. Remember?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Get cut. The Cenobites showed up. I'm sorry, the lead Cenobite showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, before she blacked out and her brother had the dream, she was marked.
The Cenobites said that blade was meant for you.
Yeah.
But
so
she didn't get it.
Because she didn't do the follow protocol.
It missed her.
Like, well, now the box is in your hands, so you have to decide what's going on.
Yeah.
So the minute she didn't get cut, I think the power passed from Voight to her.
Right. Sure. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Kind of like somebody new rubbing a genie's lamp. And Genie
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah, but that's
Rubbing
also
the genie
why.
lamp.
But that's also why when you get towards the end again, Voight, they had to bring her back to the house, because even Trevor's like, oh, I didn't expect you to get to the house so fast, or something like that. I don't know if someone else remembers.
I think I know what you guys are trying to address. You're trying to address who gets to get the audience with Leviathan if you started the process. And there's a line in the movie where I think it's Gasp that's torturing one of her friends with razor wire. And then she says, well, the box is in my hands now, so I can choose another. So it's like whoever's holding the box.
Whoever's holding
Can
the
choose.
That's why they
Leviathan.
needed to go back to the house, and that's why Voight needed them to come back to the house.
Oh, yeah, no,
could
Trevor
go
definitely
again.
wants, Trevor definitely is trying to get them back into the house so that they can continue to move the configuration.
Voight also tells Trevor that, why didn't you open the box and cut her with it? You know, and it's kind of like, but Trevor was too scared. And so I mean, I think
I don't think Voight's plan was ever going to work, because he actually had a confrontation with Pinhead, and she said, you chose sensation, but that's not what you really wanted. So in other words, he didn't respond correctly. He didn't give the true answer. So as a result, he failed their test. So, and ultimately he had to be humbled in order to accept the proper response.
well,
Gift.
It wasn't what he wanted. I mean, he thought it was going to be
In its
like
heart of heart.
infinite pleasure, but it wasn't. It was infinite pain.
He lied to them, and they're like, yeah, we'll keep this going in the back burner. We got some other idea. Because if you remember, it was a 6-year gap
Yeah.
before the next.
He's been stuck in the walls with that machine jammed in him for 6 years.
So this is where
why he gets so upset, and he tells Trevor that, you know, every moment is an eternity.
Yeah.
So I just want to bring this idea. So you guys are talking now about the Hell Priest talking to Voight and saying, okay, you didn't like our gift. And she actually kind of looks legitimately a little surprised, like, oh, okay, well, I guess you didn't want sensation. Like all the things that you liked in your life were connected to power. And then she says, okay, well, let us in to address your displeasure. And then she tells him that you can't return a gift, right? So all you can do is exchange a gift for another one. I just want to bring up this philosophical idea that was written by Oliver Wendell Holmes that said, one's mind, once stretched by a new idea, never regains its original dimensions. And so that means that once you've learned a fact, you can't go back to not knowing that fact, right? So you can't unring a bell, you can't unbreak a glass. I mean, you can glue it together, but it's always going to be there. So this is kind of the same thing. You can't go back on the gift. You can only move forward. And so that's why he ends up having to move towards power, not just because it was originally inside his true desire, but also because there was nothing else to go back to from that, so he just had to go forward. But
she says once you reach a threshold, you can only reach new thresholds.
Right. You can't go back.
Enough is a myth.
Yeah, that was something that we wrote down, that enough is a myth. And back to Riley, it's important that she is in recovery because she is someone who doesn't know what is enough.
Right.
And then she gets, put together with the Cenobites. Like, I mean, their whole relationship together would theoretically be flipping awesome.
Yeah.
They're the kind of people that are not the kind of ideas that are going to keep pushing each other more.
Let me ask you guys this question. You who are sighted, who saw the movie, what about the labyrinth? Is there a scene, kind of like in Hellraiser 2, where you see that like MC Escher a bit above the labyrinth view, and Leviathan coming down.
It's more of like the grounds of the mansion, isn't it?
Well, I think that he did build them, the grounds to look like it on purpose, but they did also at the same time bring up the labyrinth. Now, this is a question for y'all, actually, everyone. Joe and I were debating, do we think that the house that Voight built was supposed to be an extension of the labyrinth, like on Earth?
No, I don't think I think it was more of an homage to the labyrinth.
Or a trap. Is it a trap?
That's part of why I want to call the place a church.
Yeah.
For Leviathan.
Yeah.
Actually,
does Leviathan have easier access to Earth through this portal, so to speak?
Right.
I don't know.
And like what Ian said earlier before he left, he said that the house itself felt like a configuration because it, everything moved inside, the walls moved, the doors moved. There was all these iron bars. I think those iron bars helped keep the Cenobites out. So clearly it was a safe space for him. It was an unholy place for Voight to hang out. Sorry, I got my shows mixed up. And but that's why it's like, I think that just helps push the idea further that because the house moved this way, had this kind of 13 ghost element. Yes, it felt more like a church of Leviathan.
Right. And if I can add to that, Joe, and then we'll go back to Ed, the house can be manipulated by all these electric buttons, just like the box can be manipulated into different shapes. There's buttons who open up, like you said, secret passages, or there's this huge mesh cage that's built around the house, which, being an occultist, he has a set of blueprints for that I saw in one of the screenshots that Eric sent me. Thank you, Eric. And there's a blueprint of the cage and all the sections that would be placed on top of the house, which looks like it's mystical, right? It's some sort of mystical pattern because it keeps the Cenobites out or in when they're inside the house. So the house itself is almost like a reflection of that construction of the box, and the house itself is inside a kind of a topiary, not a topiary, but a hedge maze, right? Because when they're leaving the house, they kind of get lost on that maze.
Well,
but then
I don't think they get lost. I think that he was getting lost on purpose because Trevor didn't want to leave. He wasn't supposed to.
And also, like, the ground was pulling away, like it would sink in certain areas and whatnot. And the fact that we know now that Trevor was in on it, they weren't actually lost. And besides, by the time they do get to a gate, this awesome new chatterer shows up and just freaking goes to town on his arm.
Well, Nina did mention about the haunted house element, and y'all mentioned about
I think I was going to say about 13 Ghosts too. I've heard that a lot on YouTube and stuff, that you guys are not the only ones who've said that the house sort of reminds them of the way that in 13 Ghosts they had a house that was built to trap ghosts.
Right.
Yeah, it had those elements.
And like Demon Knight had a sort of square shaped building.
And keeping them inside.
Yeah, and they were trying to keep them out, and then they got in, and it was like another set of barriers once they were in. So it kind of reminded me a bit of that.
Does it look like that house has like the metal stuff? Does that look kind of like a Faraday cage or anything?
Something I wrote down, about what type of metals did they use, because the different types of metals used, and that's in the box too. The box has at least 3 different kinds of metals used. They have different properties depending on how you're looking at it.
Yeah. And does it go, do you think, underground, like under the house as well? Like it encases the house?
In the foundation and the rebar and all that?
Yeah.
Not sure about that, but it does look like the pattern is made with squares. It's not a regular grid.
Oh, that almost sounds like the Innes house.
And squares,
exactly.
Squares that overlap each other and turn into triangles, and it's like.
I'm going to throw in 2 cents here. This is going back to the original train here. It's you were asking if you thought that the house was here or it was in hell. If you remember, like from Hellraiser 2, Frank showed up in a reproduction of the house. He was in his own personal hell. At the end, when Leviathan showed up, that wasn't like a topiary maze, because if you look at it, the entire countryside was a maze.
Yeah, it was a
right.
Right?
It's overimposed onto that and extended.
Yeah,
yes, it becomes this liminal space.
Yeah.
They get the impression through the movie that, like, the Cenobites, the dimensions, they could just cross over very easily, seamlessly. Remember the car?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was one of my favorite scenes. That when
Right.
that,
So
that-
basically,
yeah.
so for 6 years, as soon as Voight solved the puzzle, he'd been like living in the house in hell while still in this world for like 6 years. He thought he was like keeping them out. He was still in hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when
Right.
Leviathan showed up, that was his own private hell. And again, he thought he was keeping them out. He was the bird in the cage.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
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 Again, it keeps going back to Voight wasn't using other people to do it so he could like ask for them to end him. Because remember, he's like, just kill me, I want to die, whatever. That wasn't the end goal for them. They said like, you never really embraced who you really are. You asked for sensation. You're all about power.
Yeah.
So in other words, they needed to let him suffer for 6 years to finally like realize you didn't ask for the right thing.
Yeah, it was a mind game.
Yeah.
Yes.
They let it go on. They could have ended him at any time.
But they also wanted to see what Riley was going to do with her final choice.
Right.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
also, I mean, 6 years is nothing to a Cenobite.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
They were
300 years and you still don't know my name.
when Riley entered the picture, she was supposed to be a mark, and they looked at her and go like, "This we can work with."
Yeah.
And like right at the beginning, instead of going after her and saying like this was meant for you, they're like, no, we're putting our mark on you. We've got our eyes on you.
I also want to bring up the fact that when there's a showdown between Voight and the Hell Priest or Priestess, that she looks at the house and all the stuff that he built, and she says, "You built all this, all for us." And she's almost kind of impressed, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I think she kind of realizes that, you might be put to a better purpose, to have power to yield in our name, because obviously he's a powerful man.
They tricked us with that line in the trailer, because they said all the pain, all the blood, all for us.
Yeah,
And
they
it was-
cut two lines together.
Yeah.
They did that.
I like that. I like stuff like that in trailers because, it keeps you guessing and it doesn't give away the movie,
It's like the trailer for Terminator 2 where Arnold Schwarzenegger points the handgun and fires it, and then the Dyson building explodes. It's like that's, that's
Can we talk about the Cenobites now?
Oh my God, yes. There were 7. I mean, is that a record? I think that's a Hellraiser record, isn't it?
I mean, if you think of Voight as 2,
Well,
his
yeah,
before when
Voight-
he got the
Voight
the,
would
the
make
thing that's stuck in his chest was called the loom. Just so you know,
Voight would make 8 then.
That's true.
Did he become the engineer? He started to wield the power of Leviathan?
I think he was just another Cenobite and he wasn't finished at the end.
Yeah.
I think that they made him a full-blown Cenobite so that way he can just, continue to service Leviathan.
he'll be taught.
Yeah.
Because he obviously worships Leviathan already.
Yeah.
That's going to open up another lot of debates, because if you remember from like Hellraiser 2, none of the Cenobites remembered they were human.
Right.
At the end, their sin of remembrance is why Chenard took them all out.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Leviathan said clean house, right? So the Hell Priests and all the others, they know Voight's going to be turned into a Cenobite. So they're going to be aware of that fact. Is he going to be aware of it? Is he going to keep his memory now? Or is
We'll have to wait.
Well, I think you're bringing in something from Hellbound that it doesn't really latch on to this particular mythology.
Yeah, that could be different. So
in other words, we can let go of what's done in the past.
Well, yeah, we don't really have all the answers yet until they make another one of these.
There was an interview with Goran, who plays Voight. It was a really interesting interview I found this morning. I'm going to put that in the show notes. And he was talking about how, as an actor, the first movie he saw was 4, Bloodline. And he was like, oh, there's 3 more before this. And he's like, yeah, it's a cool movie. I thought it was sci-fi, but then I realized, oh, no, this is going to be a horror movie. So he went back to the store and he rented out the other 3. And he ended up seeing that with a friend like within 2 or 3 days or a weekend. So he said, I was a fan of Hellraiser by that time. And then he said during this movie, he was having conversations with David Bruckner about, so who are these guys? Are the Cenobites, were they human or whatever?
What's their motivation?
And and so what they came up with, and he did the disclaimer that it's like, this is not canon for this particular movie. It's just what we discussed on set as 2 guys just chatting about the Cenobites. What could they possibly be? They came to the idea that these are just tourists from a different dimension that come into our world to get a knowledge about experiences that they can't have. And so I thought that was really interesting because I've always considered that, Leviathan's kingdom is like a different dimension, not necessarily hell. Like people keep saying Cenobites are demons, Leviathan is the lord of hell. And I'm like, well, what hell are you talking about?
Well,
to
they
me,
take that line, the demons to some, angels to other too, literally.
right.
Yeah.
I always thought it was just a different plane of existence, and you can go there using the box. And then these creatures come and they're like, hey, nice to meet you. Let me give you a good time. And then it's like their idea of a good time, not our idea of a good time. So that's where the translation doesn't work for us. But at the same time, I would like to think of that these were once humans, just like Voight at the end becomes a Cenobite. So the Hell Priest and the other ones could also have been human. But there's some creatures that don't look like they might have been human all along, like the Weeper, for example. She's a very kind of strange, like, face shaped and body shaped, and I thought that it could even be like a creature from another dimension.
No,
Weeper's
human photo is in one of the files. Remember, there's like an article and there's 4 people that went missing, and she's one of them.
Oh, she's the actress. Okay.
There was some weird transformational stuff that they wanted to do, with some of these Cenobites, almost in a way, kind of like the concept of how, the engineer in the original Hellraiser is supposed to be created out of a mishmash of human and whatever, some sort of metamorphosis creature,
This one, they carried themselves like a religious order the entire time. The poses, the gestures, the arrogance, the face, the haunting breath, how they said things, their limited speech in some. All, even when they approached their victims, it's the way they did it was almost like a practice ritual.
Which one is the female Cenobite that has the nun habit? Is that the Gasp?
We know all their names.
Yeah, I mean, all their names are in the credits and on IMDb now, but it was a little hard to. And the mother is one we don't see very much. Like she's really.
Let me just go ahead and enumerate the different ones, right? So we got the Hell Priest played by Jamie Clayton. Yeah. We have the Gasp, which is the one that has the piece of skin draped over her head, and then it kind of looks almost like a habit, and the splayed out throat, which she kind of talks like this. Yeah. And there's the Weezer, I believe, or they call him Asphyx.
Yeah.
Which is the creature that has like this Leviathan tech embedded in his chest, and his arms are kind of tied in front of him. And he's got this
skin draped over his face.
Right.
That's the one that runs.
Yeah.
Yeah, he runs.
That's like your, asphyxiation.
Yeah.
There's one that shows up very briefly, which I was so fascinated with, and I definitely want to see more, which is the mother Cenobite. Yeah. It's a Cenobite that appears just for like 2 seconds.
It's a pregnant belly one.
Yeah, pregnant belly one. And there's people who took screenshots of that, and it looks beautiful, but it's like, I don't understand why they didn't use it a little more. I really want to see more of this. That's why I want there to be a sequel.
The movie was 2 hours long.
I saw someone complaining about the runtime, and I'm like, I need more.
And of course, there's a chatter, right? A gigantic chatter.
Who gets destroyed.
I know.
Oh, that was amazing.
Oh, he was cute.
That was amazing when they stabbed him with the box and he just sticks out his arms and he starts walking backwards like, yo, bring it on.
Yeah.
He is not at all hurt. He's like, I have been waiting for this.
I'm a 7
I'm about to get more pain and pleasure than anybody.
Yeah, he's like,
amazing.
Yeah, for him, that was like the ultimate climax of the suffering, right? That's the end.
Dude, like as him walking backwards going, bring it on.
Like Uncle Frank at the end.
I've never seen that.
My body is ready. Yeah.
He's like Uncle Frank at the end, who's like, Jesus wept.
Yeah.
But what did you guys think of the idea that you could just stab a Cenobite and that would count as a sacrifice?
I honestly, because we're dealing with so much new Cenobites, I'm just like, sure, why not? This is part of their lore now.
It's
for these Cenobites.
Honestly, it's a little bit easier to wrap your head around than like I'm just gonna spin the box a little bit and zap somebody with it.
Once she stabs Cheddar, and Cheddar just stops in his tracks. And it cuts to the Hell Priestess, and she's like, clever girl. She doesn't say that, but I figured that when she raises the 2 fingers, because that's what she does when she calls the chains, she's like, I'll allow it.
Yeah, it was very, I'll allow it.
But I don't think that would work again, because there's one throwaway line some point where they're trying to stab asphyx with it, and someone at Trevor, someone says like, that's not going to work a second time or whatever. I swear to God, he says something like that.
Does he? I don't remember.
You are the weakest link.
Yeah.
You are the weakest link.
No, he does. He says the opposite, because he yells at Voight. You didn't have to do that. We could use them.
Okay, well, I misheard it then, but I think that was mostly just like, I'll allow it, because I want to see how this plays out. So poor Chatterer, he comes out of the floor, and yes, Ed, there's a part where the floor opens up, and you do see the Cenobite doing the reverse joke of like pretending to go downstairs when you're going behind a desk. He comes up from the floor, and you do see into the floor, there's like a whole maze of stairways and archways.
A 7-foot tall Chatterer.
Yeah.
How do you like that?
A mask.
Yeah.
And
And
then
then
threatening.
I see people being upset about, like, oh, you can't replace Doug. You can't replace any of the other Cenobites. They're the Chatterer's all wrong, this, that, the other. And it's like, are you the only person on the planet named Jeff?
Yeah.
There are other Cenobites in this world that have had pins lodged into their face.
Oh, and
No, dude.
And how many different times have we seen different versions of the Chatterer?
Right.
Oh my
Who
God.
made
What
you
is
the
this,
boss?
number 4 or
Oh my
5?
gosh, you don't understand. We already have one actor, and his name is Jack Nicholson, and he should have been the only actor needed for all the movies in the world.
Right.
Exactly.
Or Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
But the funny thing is this Chatterer is 7 feet tall, and I don't know if you could notice this or anything, but one of the interesting things about his head, design, is in the back of his head is boxes, like design,
I noticed.
There's
Yeah.
Leviathan tech stuck in the back of his head.
It was really
really
subtle
wish we would have been
and
able to
hard
see
to
more.
spot. Yeah. I thought it was like a spike jammed into the back of his head, because you don't see it very long.
Yeah, there's some cubic things stuck in the back, just like
Yeah.
Jamie Clayton's pinhead has these things stuck in the throat. Looks like the center circular part of the box, and they have all these like pins, a lot of pearled pins on all the Cenobites. That's what kind of stitches them up together once their skins are stretched and cut and stripes. Those pins are the ones who put their costume back together, so to speak.
Those are beautiful, but in the Hellbound Heart, how are they described? Does it look like little rubies?
It just says
bejeweled pins.
Jeweled pins.
Yeah.
So my
Jeweled
idea for this film is that those pins are what allow someone to survive trauma that would have killed them. So because they take one pin out of themselves and put it into their victims before they really like start to work.
Oh, that's a good point. They do that for at least 2 or 3 victims. That's
Yeah.
true.
The nursing
That's an interesting theory. It's like they walk around with their weapons on their bodies, stuck into their bodies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They had to drill, every single pearl, they actually got faux pearls that did not have holes in them. Like, in other words, you could buy pearls on the internet that are made with a hole through them to make a necklace with, right?
Yeah.
Well, they had to get ones with no hole and drill every single one with halfway through the pearl, and then put the rod in there,
Yeah.
to make those pins.
There was a
And
lot
they-
of practical effect work for all these Cenobites. Jamie Clayton was talking in an interview about how it felt to wear that makeup. And so, for example, there was a neck piece that she had to put on all the time that kind of was really constricting. So every time they weren't shooting, she was like, get this thing off my neck. And the silicone outfit that she wore was also very constricting. And so she couldn't take a full breath once that bodysuit was on her torso. She couldn't take a full breath. So, artists suffer for their art.
And the people that wore all those different Cenobites, most of them, not all, but several of them were in full body suits like Chatterer. And in order to get into that, you have to be slid into it with like KY jelly.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Lubricated. Here's my final thoughts about the movie. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was amazing. I liked the story. Great job on the story. The music, the fact that they brought in some Christopher Young melodies into it and reworked them. I thought it really kept me happy. It was a bit of fan service there, but I felt that was needed because the original music is so much an integral part of Hellraiser that I'm so happy they brought that into this version as well. The Cenobites were amazing. They were like, to me, they were like what they were supposed to be as described in the book. The fact that they were naked, the fact that you could see scarifications and like hooks pulling out of like pubis areas. And it was just amazing. This is what I always thought Hellraiser should have, more of this. I was very happy with this. I want to see more. And again, one of the other beats that worked was when we see the Cenobite maker in Hellbound. Shinnar turns into a Cenobite. Big spoiler at the end is that Voight gets taken by Leviathan, gets chained up and taken into the big diamond. And then inside the brightness, the very white brightness, which kind of mirrors the white brightness that we see when Kirsty solves the box and you see the Cenobites bathed in white light. So they brought that white light from inside Leviathan, and we see Voight turned into a Cenobite. And it's like a shocking sequence. It's gruesome as hell.
But also sort of angelic and beautiful at the same time. It's really strange. So it was so powerful.
He's kind of like standing on this metal, almost like a surgery table, but it's like these pieces of like art, golden brass. They kind of look almost like an angel.
Penis.
Actually, the table he was on was the symbol that was around the head Cenobite's throat.
Oh, yes. Thank you for picking that up.
And it looked like the table, and then the table, it stretched his arms out like Christ on the cross, and then it went to town on him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a lack of blood when it did it.
Exactly.
Well, if you want to know how that was all done, check out my interview because we got a great thing about how it was done with pictures and stuff. He even made little videos with his cell phone, like, the stuff in Jamie Clayton's neck and all that, they did some of that stuff like with 3D printing. And so we have like little videos in our interview with all that.
Man.
That's awesome.
Touching base on what you said about the music score, Jose.
Yeah, Ben Lovett.
Oh God, it was.
Oh yeah, we got so excited. Well, because first of all, Joe literally jolted. Like, we're sitting next to each other on the couch, and once he heard the throwback to the original score, he was like, "Oh my God!"
But I mean, it's very faint when it begins, and you start hearing it about 15 minutes into the movie, and I noticed the close, it's not there at all. And then 15 minutes in the movie, as soon as they start becoming a little bit closer to the box, while it's still in the safe, the music just starts trickling in. It's
really deep in the mix.
It's deep in the mix. It's very faint. It's almost as if like they wrote a different song with the same notes.
Exactly.
And it just. But by the time you get to the end of the movie, I mean, it builds up throughout the film. But by the time you're into the movie,
it explodes.
At the very end, you are being pounded across the head. This is Hellraiser's score.
Yeah,
this is
glorious.
the score, and we are in this world. You are in the shit. It is insane.
It's very glorious.
Yes,
feeling.
It is. It's amazing, and
so
I hope
happy.
this is a release we get on vinyl because, like, even Ryan said he loved the new stuff that they added and how it begins. The score and the picture kind of are opposing, but yet they work together because we're getting such hard hits at the beginning of the movie that isn't original Hellraiser score, and it's moving. With this beautiful footage that's just flowing, while when we see we go up the building, we see the shot of the skyline of the city, where then we cut to the shot of the lawyer inside the car, and we're just following her through the passenger side window, and we're just getting these heavy hits. We don't have Hellraiser score until they start walking up to the building that has the box within the safe, and it's like that's when it starts trickling in. But all of this pulled together works so well together. I have to have it on vinyl.
I know,
Yes,
me too.
I
was looking around on Spotify to see if they put it up, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see if that comes out.
I'm sure it will. I saw some symbolism in the kills that were associated with the different puzzle configurations. Each person was sort of killed because of the thing that they lacked, right? So the lament configuration, her brother Matt died on the lament configuration. He didn't really have much of a life. All he was about was taking charge of his sister's life. Then the lore configuration, right? They went to Menaker for knowledge to figure out what's going on. and that she didn't really give him much. I mean, she thought she knew stuff, but she didn't. Then the loader on configuration was Nora, right? That's Love. And Nora was a character that was really just on the periphery, and nobody seemed to really...
Is that the roommate?
Yeah, the roommate.
Yeah, the roommate.
Yeah, and then the Lazarus configuration was Resurrection, and Chatterer had no life.
Supposed to be
and
for her brother.
And Chatterer was the one killed with it, and he just exploded. Right? There's no resurrection for him. And then the Leviathan configuration, they started with Colin, but then they ended up on Trevor, and that Leviathan configuration is power. And Trevor was really powerless, right? He was somebody manipulated by Voight, and everything he did was what somebody else told him to do.
Man, I didn't think of any of that.
Well, I didn't my first time through. It was my second watch through. I started looking at that.
If I could,
it's layered. It's got many layers.
If I could go back to what Catalina was talking about at one point, because you said that Riley being an addict in recovery, she doesn't know how to say enough. And at the end of the movie, when she finally walks into the inner sanctum and they ask her, which reward are you going to pick? That's when she says enough, right? That's when she goes like, you know what? I'm not going to keep going. I'm going to stop here. I'm good.
Did make a note about how like horror films, I like when they're like morality tales, and it's really difficult to do, I think, like a morality tale nowadays, because everything's just kind of
morals are so gray,
everything's so much in the gray area. But they did kind of like, it was a morality tale, but I didn't feel like I was being hit over the head with it. I wasn't being hit over the head with, oh, she's a bad person, it's nothing like that. She's just human.
No, it feels a lot better when they make you figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, it's a smart movie. It's not for dummies, Yeah.
What would you think would have happened if she, I know this is a big if, but if she had picked Resurrection for her brother, in what way? Because we keep hearing this throughout the movie, like all the Cenobites give you is pain. So all these rewards, it's probably going to come with a huge cost. And so I asked my wife, what did you think would happen? Because she saw the movie with me. I was like, what did you think would happen if she had picked to bring back her brother? And she said, well, it would probably something like he would come back, but he would have some sort of instrument in him like Voight had, where he would be constantly in pain or something. Or
Frank, he'd be bad.
Maybe he would show up as the skin man that we see him briefly, with all the horrible thing, be like kind of a monkey's paw kind of thing. Or they bring him back and he's not there. He's just a shell, sad-faced guy who's like, yeah, I'm here. Yeah. What would you think would have happened?
That too. I mean, it goes back to, and this is going to be weird, but like you got to go back and rewatch it, because Reflections really kind of gave away a lot more. They kept bleeding the lines that like their world was existing right within ours, but we couldn't see it. But like when she saw Matt, when you looked in the mirror, you could see what he really looked like. And then Nora in the back of the car, when she looked in the rearview mirror, she saw her being tortured.
Mm-hmm.
If you catch bits and pieces throughout the movie and go back and look, like when you're in the beginning in Voight, in his inner sanctum, the reflections on the glass of everything that was in the cases, where if you get a look back on that, you'll catch little things. It kept teasing about the realities of the situation. Like everything you see is not really what's going on. And there was like a lot of hidden things. And like, again, when Matt died in the bathroom, when she ran in there, that mirror was broken.
It was, yeah. And the right on her left side when she enters. Yeah.
Right. They didn't want her to see what was going on. So the whole point is like, going back to your thing, is like, if he came back, he'd probably be like a husk, he's back, but they're keeping his soul. There was always going to be some part of the bargain you didn't expect.
There's a trick to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even when Jamie Clayton, the Hell Priestess, says, your brother's ending was exquisite. She says ending, like he's over.
Yeah.
So
that was basically her warning to her, like, be careful what you pick.
Yeah.
Right.
They kept hiding things within plain sight throughout the movie. And like, if you go back and look at like when things are reflecting object, like even the box had certain reflections. And even when the box was in its container, if you go back and look, it's like there's little things hidden in plain sight. They basically let you know they've always been there. Like they were in the dreams, they were in real, they were in your waking reality and dreams. Even when Riley took the pills and felt back, she was on that merry-go-round.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was, if you think about it, that was the center circle of the top of the box.
It was. They do an overhead shot. A good catch there too, as well. I like that the Cenobites weren't pushy at the end. They weren't like, well, we're going to take you anyway. So they gave her the choice, and they respected the choice. And basically, it's like, now you're going to live with the consequences of your actions.
I loved how they delivered that. You're going to live with the guilt? Like, oh my God.
Your suffering has just begun.
Well, that's just it. It's just begun, because they said early on, her first introduction is, we own you. We can claim you at any time. Yeah. They're playing a long game with her. They're not done with her.
Right, exactly. It echoes a little bit when the female Cenobite in the first movie is coming up the stairs when she's running down. She's like, where are you going? Yeah. But there's a moment where a female Cenobite replies back to Kirsty saying that she can give a frag. She says, maybe we prefer you. In that sense, in this one, she's marked, right? So maybe at one point they can always come back. But I think at the end, when she picks the final choice, they leave her with the box in the sense that now here's the lament configuration. Now you have the choice to either live with get the rest of your life thinking about what happened and your decision and all the people that suffered because of you, or you can grab the box and just give it to someone else.
Are you going to hang on to the box?
Which is going back to what you had mentioned earlier about asking with the first man that sells the box.
Right. Yeah, that's how I connected it to the beginning in my mind. That's the connection I did. Yeah.
The difference between the first movie and this movie, though, is the first movie they were very hedonistic, sexual. They were all about sensation. This one, they were of a higher order. Like, you had multiple options to go with. If you wanted sensation, we could overrun you with sensation. If you wanted power, if you wanted this, they basically, each configuration had its own vibe from the Cenobites.
But they're all still kind of the same. I mean, they're all about pain.
They're giving those offers according to what they understand that offer to be. Like the Cenobites think, well, you obviously, if you choose liminal, you want sensation, so we'll give you the sensation that we think is pleasurable for us. Yeah. Just like we're going to give you the knowledge that we have, which might not be the knowledge that you want. So it might be the knowledge of how this whole thing works, or it could be the knowledge of you can understand like things that will make you want to claw your eyes out or something like that. They're completely alien to us.
Like H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. That cosmic horror thing.
Like if a fourth dimensional creature was to look at a third dimensional creature, like third dimensional creature looks at a two dimensional creature. It's like we have more understanding and experience of the world because two dimensional only knows, length and width, where we know height. So for them, they're basically looking at us saying, well, sensation, but we have a different perception of sensation that you're limited to. Let us show you.
Yeah.
So, everything Voight says, I didn't know it was going to be like this. Well, no, it's because you only know your limited view of things, whereas they've got a much higher understanding. People aren't prepared for what they're asking for.
I want to see a continuation of this. I want to see a sequel. I don't understand. I mean, I know opinions are opinions, but there's people who are literally saying, like, this is verbatim. Things like the sets look like they came out of a dollar store. I'm like, what are
sets were amazing. The pull away sets. Oh my God.
I know.
I think that there are bigots out there that are trying to justify their
I know.
That
it's
they
like
already hated it before the movie even came out.
They're just forcing themselves to hate it. They probably haven't seen it.
You guys might have seen that too in certain groups. People coming up and being really vocal. Oh, they deleted my last post. Well, here's another post saying how this movie is dog shit. Blah blah blah. It's like nobody cares, dude. Are you really going to be the guy who comes into a community that's celebrating and just dropping a bucket of cold water?
Yeah, they're the vocal minority.
That's literally why I left the whole platform.
Yeah,
that is the reason why I left the whole platform.
Ed, they're not even a minority, Ed. They're just like one or two guys. And
there's a shitload from. I'm sorry, excuse me. There are a bunch. I
bet you it's bad though in the Joe Bob group
on Facebook.
Really?
Like everywhere I see nothing but just hate. And they're saying the worst things ever. And I'm like, I have an argument for absolutely every one of this, you people, and I do not have the time.
Don't waste your time.
Yeah. I can't understand where they're coming from. I cannot, for the life of me, understand.
So, a lot of times these are just trolls. People that are trying to get a rise out of you.
Then there are a lot of them.
I am very happy with
this. Facebook on purpose elevates those viewpoints because that's something that works better for their algorithm. They want people to be angry and they want people to be upset and confrontational because it's what makes people talk.
Right.
Which is kind of ridiculous. I like talking about stuff I like.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, it's like talk radio. It's like if you had somebody crazy call in, it would get a whole bunch of lights lighting up on their switchboard.
Yeah.
Well, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. I mean, I'm all green across the board. I love the heck out of this. I think Hulu is doing a great job with Clive Barker. They did also the Book of Blood. Now they're doing this. Hulu, are you going to pick up Nightbreed next? That would be cool. I would love to see.
Or how about starting to release these on physical media for all you guys?
Yeah, please.
So yes. one more before. I know it sounds like we're trying to wrap up. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about really quick. It's just we sort of touched on it, but I was just blown away by the way that their reality would stretch into ours. Instead of just the walls open up and the Cenobites come out, which, I understand because that was what we could do at the time. But now the way that their reality stretches into ours, grabs a person, and then kind of stretches back and brings him with him. That was so cool.
Is that because of CGI type stuff?
And optical effects,
and
maybe.
Camera tricks.
Yeah, I mean, and like especially the one where they're driving away in the van and Nora is in the back, And
the reality stretches.
Yeah, and so she looks back and she sees the people in the front seat of the van, and they look like they're 100 feet away. That was
what the
so
audio
cool.
for the blind says on that part? It says the back of the van gets chopped in half or something like that.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, that's not good.
No,
it's like a push pull almost, right?
Dude. Okay, let me explain. This is how I imagine they did it. Okay, they have two sets. They have. From inside the van, there you have a point of view looking towards the driver's side of the van, and then you have a point of view facing the rear of the van from inside, okay? Right. And what they did is literally they track the camera back in sort of like this black voided area on set. So it appears that the front of the van is moving further and further and further away from you. And in order to keep it looking like they're driving through
the surrounding area.
Yeah, the topiary thing.
They probably composited, like with green screen footage
outside.
of the outside, all right? So they just composited that and then keyed it to be smaller and smaller and smaller in post. But what they did, I'm certain, is just do it old school and just track the camera back away from the prop they were using which
was the front of the
front of the van. Yeah,
inside, the inside front.
And they did.
So you're getting the feeling that you're being pulled back away from the front of the van.
Yeah, and they had that for both sides, but
that's cool.
Yeah.
And then they composited it all together so that way your brain gets tricked into thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the further those things get away, they start fading out with shadow until it becomes nothing. And then it just kind of opens up to a tunnel. She's like, all of a sudden she's in a tunnel, dark tunnel.
Yeah.
And with brick walls.
She's in the labyrinth. Like she looks away and now she's in the labyrinth and she's been laying on this stone floor instead of in the back of the van. It was so dreamlike and that just totally blew me away. I mean,
it was beautiful. Yeah. It's very, very well done. And
it's surreal. That's cool.
Yeah.
Remember that scene from Time Bandits when they found the wall in the beginning and it just kept pushing away?
And it keeps going?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I must have been 5 years old when I saw that movie. I can't remember anything from it.
And that reflects, in my view, a little bit of Hellraiser 1, because it's like when the Cenobites arrive, you hear the bell, and almost like the whole space where the people are in gets transported. It gets isolated from the rest of reality, right? Because when Laurie is running from the Cenobites at the end, Butterball gets the house knocked over on him, and she opens the front door of their house, and all of a sudden there's nothing there but void, a big blackness, and then the engineer shows up. And it's kind of the same thing. So they're cut off from that reality.
And here there's even a sensory component to it, right? Because they start the world starts kind of getting fuzzy and they get dizzy and almost like they've been drugged. At first I thought, well, when they get cut, they drugged them or something, but that's not it at all. It's just they're swapping
reality.
They're swapping realities, and it's it's having an effect on them.
I can't wait to be able to find that someone is making a copy of the box.
Oh, you already know people are on it.
Yeah.
I know Derek Neal of Configuration Boxes already said he was starting to work on something. I don't know what he's doing, but
I know the name of the guy who designed it, like Simon Says from the original.
Yeah, Eric, I'm sure you'd be able to pull up something if you really wanted to do something, but you're a more creative person, so you'd come up with something new.
Actually,
I just want to be able to look at the designs.
Done.
What was that, Eric?
I said I noticed that in some of the patterns there were some similarities to some stuff we've done in the past. I'm like, oh, wait.
Yeah, I made a star box, and there's a star box in this one.
Oh, I did something similar to that. In fact, that one, what was the second configuration?
A lore.
Yeah.
That's the one, like the two triangles, right?
Oh no, that one is yeah, no, I know the one you're talking about. The two triangles, that's Lauderant.
Yeah.
Love.
I remember years ago I did the Mason's Keystone. If you watch the end of the video, it actually does two cubes.
Oh yeah, the corners rotate and they turn into like two pyramids.
Right.
Yeah. And I made a star box one time for Pyramid Gallery, but that's a different thing. So I made a little pyramid box.
Catalina was talking the other when we watched it. I don't know if it was the first or second time, but she was noticing how like there was a lot of similarities to Simon Says's box, but it kind of like
I spoke a lot about inversion.
Yeah, it inverted on itself. And we had to pause it to really like look at it. But yeah, I mean, you could see a lot of curvature in the designs in the new box that are similar to the original.
There was a couple scenes that when it was solved, it had almost kind of like a round pattern on it that looked like the top of the original box, that double pyramid configuration. You'd have to go back and look at it. There was a lot of different patterns developing from other patterns, and if there was a couple where it actually started reassembling itself, and you could see how the parts inside were sliding together to create a whole new set of designs from it. It was just really cool what they were working with here. You know, they didn't feel constricted. Good luck to anyone working this one out.
Yeah, well, you really need to make 5 boxes. I mean, you can't make one of these that turns into the other.
And if you want to find out who's the guy who made the box, Ed, you got that information, right?
Right. He's from Copenhagen.
I'm guessing that's going to be in the video that you guys are going to complete and that we're going to be linking to, correct?
Or in an upcoming episode.
Keep listening to our podcast, and I'm sure we'll be able to find more information about that. So, final impressions, everyone. What do you guys have anything else to close out the episode? Because otherwise, we'd be talking about this for another 2 hours, I'm sure.
We can honestly go for another several hours. All of us can, I'm sure.
Oh,
let's start watching the movie again.
Video of my notes because they are notes of a crazy person.
Oh my God! Yeah.
We'll try to think up some questions for the man who designed or who sculpted at least the pinhead appliances, because we may be getting an interview with him. And if you have some questions, think some questions.
They looked amazing. They were really, really beautiful. But Miss Jamie, she looks wonderful, and it's helpful that she has just a great face. She has a wonderful face for this character.
Yeah.
We have good pictures of the prosthetics.
I think, back on from what you were saying about Revelations, we have been conditioned for down the dark decades to lower our expectations for a Hellraiser movie over and over and over and over. And this was like a religious experience almost. It's like, oh my God, I forgot, that they could be like this.
A breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah, I know. It's nice to be able to be like, oh, I can be proud of my weird obsession again.
Oh, it was a beautiful movie. I highly recommend it to so many people.
This is a good omen for the rest of Halloween coming.
I think it was a perfect time to come out. I mean, with the 35th anniversary, it was right around Clive's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those pictures were so beautiful to be able to see that he has something that's where these people appreciate what he made, and making something beautiful again out of it.
Right.
I know it's amazing that something that was made so long ago, kind of like Star Wars or something, it's a franchise, yes, but, there may be, even so far as perhaps in 100 years, they'll still be watching Hellraiser.
Not all of them will survive, but this one definitely will.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, Pete Atkins has seen it or Tony Randall. I don't know about Barbie or Nico.
Oh, I'm sure they're all watching it.
I think when they do watch it, I think they're going to feel like what they have created in the past is genuinely still loved and respected. That makes me feel good. I mean, I've loved Hellraiser since I was way too young to have consumed it when I was, and I couldn't go to sleep. We finished the movie, and I want to say I was up for another hour and a half, and all I could say was, damn, that was a great movie.
We listened to that Floyd VHS.
And all we did was talk about how amazing that movie was.
I know.
I feel bad for the people in the UK. They don't have it.
And they deserve
I know.
it.
I think it's going to be on Paramount Plus for them.
It's going to be Paramount Plus, and they're going to make an announcement next week about the release.
How did you find that out?
It's there was some kind of a little post from David Bruckner saying that.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully UK fans will be able to see it soon if they haven't already found a way to watch it, maybe using a VPN or something.
I saw a bunch of people posting, okay, I got Disney Plus and I'm ready. I'm like, sorry.
No, it's not there.
Yeah.
It's back. We're back, baby. We're back.
I thought we ever went anywhere.
We got the band back together.
Right. So coming up next, we are going to be doing, we're going to be reposting an old commentary classic for Hellraiser Inferno. Since we're on such a Hellraiser high right now, let's bring it down. You know.
Oh, man. Can we not just do a commentary track for this new one?
Oh, we will.
And we're also going to be talking about Visions of Heaven and Hell. Jose, has your copy come in the mail yet?
Not yet, but working on it.
Okay.
And an interview with Jeremy Aiello, the sculptor of Pinhead.
The new Pinhead.
Yes.
Are y'all going to talk about Dark Worlds?
Okay. I'm still going through my list. We're going to be talking about Clive Barker's Dark Worlds and a commentary of this Hulu Hellraiser 2022.
My copy of Dark World says it's going to arrive on the 28th of October. So we're trying to see if we can get advanced reader copy a little earlier. I pre-ordered mine on Amazon and it says October 28th. And some people are saying that Abrams Books is releasing it on the 18th. And I'm like, why do I take another 10 days to get my copy?
Well, and the Book Soup autographed one, I have no idea how long that's going to take. And if they ship it to me book rate, I'm going to get it and it's going to take weeks after everybody else.
It's going to be put in a barge.
Yeah, they put it on a barge.
Oh,
I am renewed, happy, elated. Like Joe, I couldn't go to sleep that night. I saw the movie, ended at 3 a.m, went to bed like at 5, had to work a full day. So yesterday I was kind of a zombie to everybody who was I talking on the phone with. And thanks to everybody for joining us. Thanks, Joe and Catalina from Little Spark Films. Thanks, Eric Gross of Hands On Workshop. And thank you, Ed and Nina.
Yeah.
Yes. Just thank you, all the fans. I mean, obviously, this is a time for us to all rejoice. You know, we're all brethren in the order of the gash. Right. And I think that, you know, like ever since back in the early days, the beginning of fandom, you know, with Coenobium and everything, that this, you know, we all have a banner to unite under.
And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. Watch for our annual Kickstarter fundraisers to get some cool stuff, and you can buy t-shirts on our TeePublic store. Go to teepublic.com and search for BarkerCast.
Thanks for listening.